For over 2 centuries, the true story of one of America's most long-surviving native groups has largely relegated from the front burners. The story has been one of great struggles, sacrifice, and resilience in the face of sustained adversity. Yet, it remains one of America's biggest untold and unheralded stories from its often brutal past. This is the story of the Black Seminoles, a pioneering tribe whose very blood and sweat is forged from the travails of African American freedom seekers and Native American Indians. In today's video, we will revisit this inspiring and intriguing story. But before we proceed, please like and share this video. Also, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications for our channel as well. Now, join us as we journey through time to uncover the rich history of the Black Seminole tribe by examining their story. Number 1. Origins and formation. The origins and formation of the Black Seminole tribe can be traced to their interaction with the southern Florida area as far back as the 1700s. Back then, the Spanish inhabitants of Florida looked to the Native American population to defend themselves against the threat of their Southern Carolina neighbors. But because Indians were no match against the Southern Carolinian invaders and the European diseases prevalent at that time, the Spanish authorities in Florida had to intervene or risk extermination. Their solution was to open the doors to Native Americans and escaped enslaved people to leave the southern colonies and reside in their lands. Their goal was to leverage the migratory population's strength to defend against future raids from their neighbors. In no time, a large number of enslaved Africans escaped from the southern part of the United States, where slavery was more endemic, to the Spanish Florida territory, where they were promised better prospects. And by order of King Charles II of Spain, they were offered freedom in 1693, but this freedom came with a price tag. They would swear to join the resistance that defended their host against their invaders, so they had to volunteer in a militia that settled at Fort Mose. Some of the escaping slaves who had no desire to join the militia found sanctuary in the wilderness areas around southern Florida. As time passed, they blended fully among the Seminole communities, where they were welcomed and integrated into the fabric of tribal life. The Seminoles and Native Americans themselves, who helped to resist encroachment by European settlers, viewed the escaped slaves as allies in their struggle against colonial oppression. They all fought on the same side during the American Revolution and in the War of 1812, where they joined forces with the British to repel the U.S. and its settlers. This symbiotic relationship laid the foundation for the emergence and sustenance of the Black Seminoles. Number 2. Resistance and struggle. In the First Seminole War, the Black Seminoles continued to face the threat of slavery even after they escaped from the southern part of America, where slavery was very rampant. Yet they continued to resist the forces of bondage and went on to mount a spirited resistance against the forces of enslavement and oppression. Using their intimate knowledge of the land and strategic alliances with Seminole warriors, they waged a guerrilla war against plantation owners and slave catchers. Their acts of courage and bravery during the Seminole Wars further stamped their fierce resistance to slavery and other forms of bondage. After the American Revolution ended, the Black Seminole community in Florida had armed themselves with enough weapons to cement their status as freedmen in Florida. The U.S. slaveholders did not take this lightly, and so they rallied under the 1790 Treaty of New York to push for the capture of Florida's black escapee population. In no time, General Andrew Jackson of the U.S. began attacking several Black Seminole strongholds in Florida to mark the beginning of hostilities in the First Seminole War, fought from 1817 to 1818. The Black and Native American communities fought gallantly to defend their lands, but were forced to retreat into South and Central Florida. Many other enslaved people escaped the onslaught from General Andrew's men, although some were not lucky enough to evade capture and even death along the way. Despite all these, the remaining Black Seminole people managed to settle in a village in Andros. where they slowly picked up the remains of their communal life. It is a testament to their firm resolve and spirit that they survived the First Seminole War. And this similar story continued to the Second Seminole War, fought between 1835 and 1842. Number 3. Forced migration and resettlement after the Second Seminole War. After the hostilities of the First Seminole War, the dust was finally settling, and the surviving Black Seminole population was picking up the pieces of their communal life. But during this time, many prominent people continued to capture Black Seminoles in their numbers and claim them as fugitive slaves. So in essence, the Black Seminole people were never really out of the woods, and it would only ever get worse from then on. The Black Seminoles' quest for freedom was dealt a devastating blow with the passage of the Indian Removal Act of 1830. This act sought to forcibly relocate Native American tribes, including up to 4,000 Seminoles and their massively depleted Black Seminole allies, to the Western Indian Territory. In the ensuing conflict, which was mostly the Second Seminole War, the Black Seminoles found themselves caught in the crossfire between the warring factions. The Black Seminole, led by fierce leaders like John Horse and John Caesar, put up an intense fight alongside the natives, but they were met with overwhelming military force. After being offered a false promise of freedom by the U.S. side if they surrendered, John Horse and his remaining troops laid down their arms. In a sad turn of events, many Black Seminoles were forced to flee their ancestral lands and embark on a perilous journey westward, which was known as the Trail of Tears. The Trail of Tears was a harrowing march that claimed the lives of thousands of indigenous peoples as they traveled thousands of miles over harsh conditions to the Indian Territory. It became a symbol of the injustices inflicted upon Native American and African American communities alike. Despite the hardships they endured, the Black Seminoles refused to surrender their freedom and autonomy. Some chose to resist relocation and remain in Florida, while others sought refuge in the remote wilderness of the Everglades. Those who made it to the Indian Territory also resisted efforts by the native slaveholders under the administration of the Creek Nation. While there, they continued to defy attempts at subjugation and maintain their way of life. Number 4. Quest for freedom in Mexico. After their displacement, a group of Black Seminoles embarked on a daring journey across the border into Mexico, where they were seeking refuge from the relentless pursuit of their oppressors. With John Horse leading their march, about 108 Black Seminoles escaped to northern Mexico in 1849. Slavery had been abolished in Mexico 20 years ago, so it represented a safe haven for them. On arrival in Mexico, they formed alliances with indigenous peoples and Mexican authorities, establishing settlements at Nacimiento, where they could live free from the fear of slavery. The Black Seminoles found sanctuary in the rugged terrain of the northern frontier, where they carved out a new life for themselves as border guards. While there, they leveraged their skills as farmers, hunters, and warriors, cultivating the land and building communities while also defending their autonomy against external threats from Texan slave raiders. Number 5. A fusion of cultures and traditions. Despite facing countless adversities, the Black Seminole tribe has preserved its cultural heritage for future generations. Descendants of the Black Seminoles can be found in various parts of the United States, Spain, and Mexico, and their culture has been influenced to certain extents by their interaction with these people. The fusion of cultures is shown in their clothing, food, and traditions. One notable aspect of this cultural syncretism is evident in the religious practices of the Black Seminoles. Drawing from their African roots, they embraced spiritual beliefs, emphasizing connection with the natural world and reverence for ancestral spirits. At the same time, they adopted aspects of Native American spirituality. For instance, they incorporated ceremonial dances and communal rituals into their worship. Language also played a crucial role in the cultural fusion of the Black Seminoles. While many tribe members spoke Creole, a language derived from a combination of African and European languages. They also learned to communicate in Muskogee, the language of the Seminole people. This linguistic exchange enabled deeper community connections and reinforced their shared identity. The cultural legacy of the Black Seminoles is also evident in their music, dance, cuisine, and religious practices, which reflect the fusion of African and Native American influences. Whether it is in the rhythmic beats of the drum or the intricate patterns of their beadwork, their artistic expressions shone brightly and reflected their vibrant culture. The Black Seminoles celebrate their heritage through these artistic expressions and affirm their unique identity as a distinct ethnic group. Number 6. Contributions to American and Mexican Wars. The contributions of the Black Seminoles go beyond their struggles for freedom and autonomy. They also played a huge role during the military conflicts on both sides of the border. During the Seminole Wars in the United States, Black Seminoles served as scouts, guides, and warriors alongside their Native American allies. They would often use their knowledge of the land to outmaneuver and outwit their adversaries, mainly on the side of the expansionist U.S. government and slave raiders on the other side. John Horse was one of the most renowned military leaders among the Black Seminoles. John Horse was a highly revered leader who rallied his people over different confrontations and led from the front. His strategic brilliance and leadership skills earned him respect and admiration on the battlefield. Furthermore, he played a crucial role in numerous engagements during the Seminole Wars, earning a reputation as a formidable opponent to the forces of enslavement and colonization. In Mexico, the Black Seminoles continued their tradition of military service. For the next 2 decades, they offered their expertise to Mexican authorities in exchange for land and autonomy, and came to be known as the Mascots. They formed cavalry units known as the Black Seminole Scouts, which were crucial in defending the northern frontier against incursions by indigenous raiders and foreign invaders. The military contributions of the Black Seminoles underscored their resilience and adaptability in the face of adversity. Despite being marginalized and oppressed, they demonstrated bravery and loyalty on the battlefield. This earned them a place in history as skilled warriors and defenders of freedom. Number 7. Survival and sustenance. To survive in the harsh terrain of the southeastern United States and later in the unfamiliar landscapes of Mexico, the Black Seminole relied on their ingenuity and resourcefulness. Their economic practices were influenced by their traditional knowledge and how easily they adapted to new environments. This enabled them to sustain their livelihoods despite the challenges they faced. In Florida, the Black Seminoles relied on hunting, fishing, and agriculture to meet their basic needs. They cultivated crops such as corn, beans, and squash, using the farming techniques they learned from the Seminole Indians. One of their most popular foods was the soffkey porridge, a delicacy they made using mortar and pestle to mash corn. They also introduced the Seminoles to their gullah staple rice, which formed a considerable part of their diet for the longest time. Their hunting and fishing provided additional sources of sustenance, especially with game animals and fish, which were abundant in the region's forests and waterways. Following their migration to Mexico, the economic outlook of the Black Seminoles changed significantly. They built agricultural settlements in the fertile valleys of northern Mexico and cultivated crops like maize, beans, and tobacco. They also traded with neighboring indigenous communities, exchanging goods like textiles, pottery, and livestock. The ability of the Black Seminoles to adapt their economic practices to changing circumstances was vital to ensuring their continued survival and prosperity in the face of adversity. Through their resilience and resourcefulness, they forged a path to economic independence and self-sufficiency, laying the foundation for future generations to thrive. Number 8. Contemporary challenges. In the present day, The Black Seminole tribe faces a new set of challenges as they strive to preserve their cultural heritage and identity in a rapidly changing world. They face issues of economic pressure, environmental degradation, and encroaching development that threaten to impact their traditional way of life and centuries of culture and tradition preserved by sheer will and grit. At the same time, they have continued to struggle to secure recognition and rights for the Black Seminole tribe within the legal and political systems of the United States and Mexico. Over the last few decades, the Black Seminole tribe has ramped up advocacy efforts to push for official recognition of the tribe's status as a distinct ethnic group. They have also been on the front lines demanding restitution and reparations for historical injustices. These efforts have pitched them against government officials and their historical hosts in the Oklahoma region and among the native Seminoles. For example, the Black Seminole group and later freedmen have been locked in disputes with the Seminole over issues of land allotment and their general place in the larger Oklahoma society. The Black Seminole famously resisted efforts by the Seminole to exclude them under the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934. It was through their sheer grit and perseverance that the Constitution eventually officially recognized the Black Seminole group sometime in the 1950s. Other disputes related to the tribal membership, recognition, and rights of Black Seminole groups have continued to emerge. When a $58 million federal settlement was given in 1976 in favor of the Seminole peoples of Oklahoma and Florida, the Black Seminole were again faced with a battle to be included in the settlement. They argued that they were a legitimate part of the larger Seminole tribe, but their case was eventually dismissed. Nowadays, the law is a little kinder to them. They have enjoyed recognition on different national fronts and are slowly being afforded their rights and privileges as bona fide members of society. Most recently, in October 2021, the Federal Indian Health Service ruled that the Seminole Nation freedmen could access health care after reports emerged that they had been denied COVID-19 vaccines. Despite their challenges, the Black Seminole tribe remains resilient, drawing strength from their ancestors' legacy of resistance and perseverance. Through their ongoing efforts to reclaim and celebrate their cultural heritage, the story of the Black Seminoles will continue to inspire and educate for generations to come. The Black Seminoles' quest for liberation, their creation of a sovereign nation, and their bravery in the face of colonization make their history an indispensable part of the American narrative that must be told. Despite attempts to erase their presence, the legacy of the Black Seminoles endures as a testament to the indomitable spirit of a people, determined to carve out their own identity in a nation fraught with racial discord. In recent years, there has been a growing movement to advocate for the rights and recognition of the Black Seminole tribe, with activists, scholars, and community leaders calling for a re-examination of their place in history. Calls for official recognition by the U.S. and Mexican governments have gained momentum, with proponents arguing that acknowledgement of their status as a distinct ethnic group is long overdue. This is where we end today's video. We hope you have become more enlightened after watching today's video, and we look forward to having you when we next roll out a new video. Please like and share this video if you haven't done so yet, and then subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our exciting videos. See you next time.